What a week it has been. I feel very fortunate to be back hiding from the wind and the rain in my woodshed. This is where the cows used to sleep in winter when we used to milk. We're going to do this video in 3 parts. In the first part, we're going to talk about why it's been a good week for British agriculture, and that's going to take the form of a campaign reel that I shot for Save British Farming, which was intended to go out on social media before anybody did anything silly. In the second part, we're going to talk about the things that some people have done that were a little bit silly. And on the back of that, why it hasn't been such a good week for British agriculture. But we're going to finish off on a positive, and at the end, we'll see some of the speeches that were delivered on Monday to Downing Street. On Monday, the 10th of February 2025, British farmers took part in one of the largest gatherings of tractors of all time. The people organising the logistics for the Westminster protest think we got about 1,400, which is roughly equivalent to the largest official gathering of tractors that I can find. The Save British Farming protest was a success. Every time we go to London, we get bigger and better organised. We had a stage and a screen, and we even broadcast some of the old films I use on my channel to Downing Street. But this means that we're gaining credibility. We had the NFU president speak, and we got lots of media coverage on GB News and on Sky, but also, crucially, on the BBC. We didn't get loads, but we got more than we've had before. And this is what matters, because we have to win over the public, which so far is something we've been very good at doing. This is quite an old poll, but at the start of this fight, even the majority of Labour voters supported us, and we've only gotten stronger from there. The strength of this movement is that it is grassroots. Events are being run by lots of different groups that are coalitions of individuals. We don't have any political affiliations. In Westminster, we were speaking for ourselves. But we must be very careful. Many of you will have seen this image. It's a tweet claiming that we killed somebody by blocking an ambulance. The Twitter account that shared this even named the person as Saul Grayson. At the time of filming, this tweet has been viewed 1.3 million times, but none of it is real. It's all been crudely photoshopped. This shows that while we are on the right track and we are winning the argument, we're walking a tightrope, and there are lots of people trying to knock us off it. Had this image been real, it would have been game over. We cannot take that risk. We have the supermarkets on side. There's no use blocking depots while we can use them as contacts to help deliver a nuanced message to the government. A positive message about why our industry is valuable to the nation. We have to make the Labour Party understand that agricultural policy is food policy, and what we do is for the health and benefit of the urban working class. That is how we can make the Labour Party look again at their agricultural policies. We must not antagonise them. We have to convince them that it's worth having a conversation with us. This should be quite easy to do. Despite the flashpoint of the inheritance tax, we know that most of the problems agriculture is facing is a result of conservative mismanagement, the agricultural transition and free trade agreements. But because of that, quite a lot of farmers did actually vote Labour in the last election. They have a lot of rural seats, so we need to get their attention and point out to them that they're doubling down on Michael Gove's food policies that diverge from the Labour Party's own cheap food policy that they put in place after the war. The purpose of campaigning is to get positive messages into the media, not to be an expression of anger. We've made it very clear already that we are not going away, so now it is the messaging that we need to work on. It's a marathon, not a sprint, but if we hold our nerve, we can win. The signs are already there. We must keep going. The most important thing here is that this strategy of positive messaging, of putting forward a credible argument, has worked. The government have invited our representatives to the table, and they announced a press conference after. Monday was a success. But this was not the only thing that happened on Monday. There was also another event by a fringe group that were very keen on platforming Nigel Farage. This occurred very early on Monday morning, just north of London. And while this was going on, I was in a taxi on the way to the Sky News studios, and they asked me to comment on it.
Or could it be they just want lots of land? Because they're planning for...
So Nigel Farage there, addressing the early start of these protests, although as our guest here in studio, Ollie Fletcher, was saying, tractors aren't expected to roll in immediately. Where does do farmers stand about which party best supports them?
Well, on that clip, it didn't show the crowd, and I looked at the live stream on the way here, and there was about 5 people there, which I'm not exaggerating when I say Agriculture in this country in the 1930s was subjected to American imports, right? And that meant two things. Firstly, that British farmers were utterly impoverished, but also that the standard of nutrition in cities was absolutely inadequate, which is why the Labour Party introduced a cheap food policy after the war. If farmers back Nigel Farage, he will go to America, as he's already doing, and he will push for an American free trade agreement, which will return us to that situation. And that is not in farmers' interest. But the message here to the Labour Party is that if they do not back workers in the countryside, workers will inevitably turn to populist parties. This is something the Labour Party needs to get a hold of and needs to show leadership on, and then they will get farmers' support. It's very important to me that we keep things on the channel evidence-based, so I would like to correct the record. While I was in the taxi on the way to the Millbank studios, this is the shot that I saw being streamed. This chap speaking is not a farmer, and there are about 5 people in the crowd. However, I have since been sent this. There were about 50 people, as you see here. And to put that in perspective, that compares to 1,400 tractors at the Save British Farming event in Westminster, and the police said that was attended by 35,000 people. As I've said before, the strength of the movement that we are participating in at the moment is that it's grassroots. There are loads of different organisations all working together. But unfortunately, this one particular group launched a wildcat protest without informing anybody else first. As you may have seen in the news, a very small group of farmers used their tractors to block the Prime Minister into a building site. As I understand it, this was not arranged in advance with the police like the previous protests have been, and Save British Farming and the NFU both put out statements distancing themselves from this type of action. It was heartbreaking to see that all of the time and effort and all of the achievements of Monday could be unravelled so quickly. This is what Keir Starmer said on Wednesday afternoon.
But what you can't have is interest rates coming down, the growth we need in the economy, your waiting list coming down, and maintain the tax break for farmers. And people watching this will understand that that is a choice. They will know which they would prefer. Do they prefer their waiting list to come down? Do they want their mortgages to come down, the economy to start working for everyone? That's what we're trying to achieve. Or do we want to keep a tax break for farmers? But you can't have both.
And we can criticise that. I don't think that was an intelligent thing to say. He's no longer attacking people who use land to avoid inheritance tax. He's attacking farmers. He's made that very clear. But this proves beyond doubt that if we give the people we are campaigning against ammunition, they will use it against us. We cannot afford to give them an inch. And this also coincides with an announcement from the Home Office that they're going to restrict gun laws. This might prohibit storing firearms on farms. So you wouldn't be able to use them in an emergency if your livestock needed protecting, which is when you need to use firearms. So it feels that this week, on Monday, British agriculture took a strong, positive step forward and that we were finally getting somewhere. The cracks were starting to show, but because of the imprudent actions of a small handful of individuals, we have been kicked back down the ladder. I think we can take from this that wildcat protests do not deliver positive messages to the public or make us seem reasonable to the government. But we must not lose sight of the fact that Monday was a success. This can be won. I want to show you 2 of the speeches that were made on the day. The first is from a chap called Dominic, who's from a council estate. He is a food poverty campaigner and talks about the problems a lot of people have affording healthy, nutritious food. And then I went on stage after him and tried to emphasise to the government that our 2 communities are 2 sides of the same coin.
Hey, can you hear me? Okay, so I scribbled down some notes and I was kind of like, I was nervous coming here because like in no way am I a farmer. Like, in fact, I don't even have a garden. So yeah, I'm a single dad for my amazing daughter and we live in the most deprived blocks on our council estate. And here, where we live, our access to fresh food is completely overlooked. And the shop on the estate that we live on, it sells nothing fresh. I scribbled some notes, I'm going to try and use them. But yeah, so the fact that there's nothing fresh in our estate, one, it impacts our community, but also this makes it a food desert in the Garden of England. And a couple of weeks ago, I was asked to like speak on a panel for the Oxford Farming Conference, which is the first time I've ever like spoke to farmers. And the panel was focused on how food connects people, but I chose to speak about how food can disconnect people. So at the posh dinner that was the night before I spoke, I didn't know like what knife or fork to use or spoon, and the starter looked more like a dessert to me. And these are just small things, but actually they speak to the distance that we experience between class, culture, and like social possibilities. And in this way, food is way more than just what you eat. Recently, or like last week, I designed the 4 pillars of food insecurity, which is like a reimagining of the United Nations 4 pillars of security, because we don't experience security in my estate. So I reimagined that. And really the four pillars are a reflection of a disproportionate expectation of resilience in my council estate. And these 4 pictures that symbolize a deep divide between the experiences of the poor and the powerful. And I should say that, the minister, as I said to Ollie and Liz, the Minister for Food Security, Daniel, shout you out, he quoted my 4 pillars or 4 pictures in the House of Commons last week. But it really shows you that where we come from isn't a herd community. And what I go through to put fresh, hot food, as we're on pay-as-you-go gas and electric, on my daughter's table is a lot different than, say, what Keir Starmer goes through to put hot, fresh food on his children's table. So I'm here today, thank you. So I'm here today and I'm grateful to be here, but I'm here today kind of like, what am I asking? So I don't know, like I started a GoFundMe also last week, and like in a week we got to like nearly £1,000. But I think that our share, and this is exclusive, like I have a little following, but this is exclusive. I want to take over, not take over, that sounds too dramatic, but I want to raise enough funds to lease the shop in my council estate for a couple of years and reach out to my now farmer people to kind of like bring in the fresh meat, chicken and vegetables. Because then that would actually like make you guys, like with collaboration with me, someone actually from there would make like a real difference in a really, really unheard, disadvantaged community, be able to flourish. Thank you. I want to say, like, with your guys' like input, with the University of Southampton School of Geography, with their expertise that are like guiding me, I think it can happen. And I'm speaking from a place of hope, from a place of being forgotten, speaking of a place of trying to speak up for my neighbours. But thank you to Ollie, thank you to Save British Farming. And God bless you all. Dominic Watters, please.
God bless you, mate. We have Ollie Fletcher. You might know him from YouTube, historian farmer. Take it away, Ollie.
Hello. I just want to make it really clear how much we appreciate people like Dominic being here, because we are here as a community, but also as a minority. And I think it is so important that we create links with other people who have the same interests we do. Growing up, I live on a small dairy farm. Oh, he's here now. That's so beautiful. Here he is, but this is why we do what we do. When I was growing up, we milked 100 cows, quite often with no money at all. I hope my mother won't mind me saying this, but the carpet we had in our kitchen, she pulled out of a skip and then cut to size with a little scalpel knife, right? We were skint, but the reason that we put up with that was because we believed that what we are doing was of great social utility to people like Dominic. So it is imperative that we create links between ourselves and them. You clap if you like. The point I want to make today is a very simple one, which is that I do not believe that what the Labour Party are doing at the minute is aligned with their own principles. The agricultural transition is wrong. The Labour Party gave us the cheap food policy after the war that helped us as workers own the means of production, which sounds frightfully left-wing. But as well as that, it ensured cheap, nutritious food for the urban working class. And we believe in that, which is why we stick up and keep working despite all of the stuff we have to deal with. That is the post-war settlement. And now we are here fighting against the very party that gave us those things, because the Labour Party have forgotten what left-wing agrarian policies look like. So I would like to invite the Labour Party politely to come to the table to talk to us. We understand our land and our animals and our machines. We understand our industry, and we know what is in the national interest, and that is to save British farming. So when you all go home, do not give up the fight. Hold on, keep working. I know it's a struggle, but we can win this. We know that we are right, and what the government are doing now is unsustainable. Climate change, if there is not a war, means that we will need to produce our own food. If they destroy us, they will learn the hard way, as they did in the First World War, as they did in the Second World War, that they need us. Thank you. In other news, there is now a Save British Farming YouTube channel. I encourage you to go and follow it. There's going to be some good stuff put up there in the future. We're also working on some Save British Farming merchandise with a very friendly logo, which is what we want to see. So thanks for watching, and thank you for your support. Do remember to subscribe and let me know what you think below. And come back next week when I think we're finally going to get around to discussing the groundnut project, which I assure you is more interesting than it sounds. I'll see you then.
Jobs, give milk or beef, or even pull the farm carts, as they still do in this Gloucestershire farm and in many parts of the country. Take a British local breed away from the soil on which it has been developed. Within a few generations, its excellence